afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Date today is the 5th of February of our Lord 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Motown Noah. Big medium show for you today. Mediumly big show for you today. I'm not going to go for an hour and a half like I did the other day. That's insane. But the reception on that one was great, and I sincerely appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten, through email and over the comments on that one. A lot of engagement, and I really appreciated that. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that we, in the tail end of that episode, we're dealing with some more real-life stuff, which, again, I would love to keep doing. So for the sake of Friday's episode, if you guys want to send in some of those like life advice, I think we called it Friday Feelings is what the subject line of the email can be, so that way I know it's like a specific. Hell, I could even, if it one day snowballs, maybe I'll even end up making 2 separate emails for it. But for now, some of the emails have kind of been like, sorry, I don't know if this is too crass for the coping hour. Dude, please talk about whatever you want. We'll tackle it on this show. No topic too tall. You know what I mean? So sincerely, I appreciate all the responses that we've gotten on that, and the level of engagement again was to the moon. So that always just really warms my heart to see. What have I been doing over the weekend? Hope you guys had a good one. I watched the Grammys. We sat around, and of course, if a bunch of celebrities are going to gather in Hollywood, of course I'm going to be there to watch it. There's nothing that makes me happier than watching celebrities sit in a room for like 3.5 hours and just like be celebrities. So the Grammys, I got a lot out of it. Obviously, Taylor going up there. Here's my thing. I got a Taylor Swift take for you guys. She goes up there and she wins her first Grammy before winning the Album of the Year for Midnights. It was like Best Pop Performance or something, right? Was the first one she won. She goes up and she announces a new album. And the first take that everybody has is, really? Like, does this have to be your night that you go up there and you announce an album? Because it's not a fan-friendly environment, right? This is an industry environment. So everybody there was probably just like, wow, cool. Like, there she fucking goes again. My other take, though, my extra medium zag is, now all of a sudden we're all big on, like, award show speech etiquette. We all give a shit about that suddenly. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Because, like, who cares? Honestly. But I do kind of think, like, really, you couldn't have waited until tomorrow, like you're fucking Taylor Swift. You're about to go to Japan to, like, restart the Eras Tour, which she's, as of this recording, I saw the private jet tracker. She is actually on her way to Japan. It's confusing to me why that's not considered doxing. And I get that it is technically public record and you can just see it anywhere, but I do think it's weird that we just have access to, but I also don't think it's weird when we can see, like, Bezos and, like, Zuckerberg flying around. For some reason, I feel like it's good to, like, put a pin in that. What the hell is Tucker Carlson doing in Russia? What the hell is that all about? Did you guys see this? You hear about this? Guys, like, sitting in a theater, like, Tucker Carlson, like, taking in a nice ballet show at the what the hell ever, huh? What is he doing there? I think there's been a sort of a long-going thing that he's been trying to secure an interview with Putin, right? And I think it was the White House a few years ago. It was like, no, you can't do this. So if that's what he's over there to do, cannot wait to hear the fucking hard-hitting questions that he's going to ask him. So, President Putin, what color is the sky? What is going on? Is probably what he's going to say. Putin's going to, like, deliver some, he's going to be like, I don't know. Straight up, I have no idea. I don't leave the Kremlin. I don't know what color the sky is. That's really interesting. That American media, and specifically the green M&M. Anyway, never mind. Let's jump into today's show. I haven't talked about the Pistons in a few weeks. There's a reason for that. Look, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't like to waste my time. I punted. I gave up. Until something meaningful happens, I don't know if that's somebody getting fired. I don't know if that's like a real life trade, which we probably won't even see until the summer, right? Something like truly meaningful. I think everything for right now is just going to be on the margins, and I like to think I don't like to think this, but I think we're all going to be disappointed come the trade deadline that the Pistons apparently just don't want to move anybody. Are we going to see Bogdanović get out of here? I'd be happy for him, honestly, because he's been a good soldier. He hasn't complained at all about the situation that he's in, and he very easily could have, because look, he's not one of those guys that's going to win you 15 games a year, but he's a bucket at the end of the day. And I think there are a lot of contending teams who would love to have him. So I think for the right price, I don't think Detroit is going to have a hard time, shipping him out if that's what they want to do. The biggest two pieces of news this week for the Pistons are that Killian Hayes wants out. He wants a new team. It's probably going to be easier to just, and I say this could age poorly with the trade deadline looming, and it makes sense. Look, there are teams that could go after him. We've been saying for like 2 years that don't let Popovich get his hands on Killian Hayes. It looks like that actually might happen, whether it's through virtue of trade here in a couple days or through virtue of free agency over the summer. I do think it's funny that if you look at I'm sorry if you can hear the siren going by. It's Chicago. What are you going to do? But I do think it's funny that if, according to Vegas, I'm like literally having to shout over this goddamn siren. Why don't I just wait for it to go by? Talking about Killian Hayes, and immediately the cops are like, wrap it up. Wrap this shit up. You cannot fucking keep talking about this guy because it's over, right? If you look at Vegas, according to them, if you look at the odds for the next team that he's going to play on, like half of them aren't even in America. They're in some like bullshit EuroLeague, China. I don't know where the fuck they are. I don't know what these teams are. They're like the Guangdong fucking Tigers. Like what? It's over. It's over. And I think the people who continue to shit on him as Pistons fans are lame and they're corny. And, is there some merit to it? Yeah, there was for a while because, like, Monty just kept playing him. He just, like, wouldn't take him out of these games to a point where when he finally got a DNP like a week ago, it was like as if we actually won a real-life game. And we didn't, by the way. But we may as well have. So Killian's going to be on his way out, and that's going to kind of suck because the band is officially breaking up, but it needs to happen. It's over. It's whatever. But the biggest piece of news, I was hooping the other day, and as soon as I'm done, I check my phone, and my brother's like, so what does this Zach LaVine news mean for Detroit? And I was like, Zach LaVine news? I was like, what happened? And he sends me the tweet that Zach LaVine is going to be getting surgery. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months, a.k.a. he's done for the year. So does this put a bullet in the Pistons trade plans for Zach LaVine? Trade plans that it sounded like were actually kind of real. It sounded like we're maybe picking up some steam, and Bulls fans probably would have been really, really crushed at what the return was going to end up being because they have a hard time reconciling with the fact that they do unfortunately possess the most negative asset in the league right now in Zach LaVine just because of how much goddamn money he makes, right? It's just an insane number. So Detroit was probably just going to have to work on filling salary. You weren't going to get Jaden Ivey. You weren't going to get Asar Thompson. I would have been shocked if you would have gotten a first-round pick. Again, we've talked about this before. I don't even think the Pistons can move a first-round pick right now because of some stuff that we have left to convey down the line. But I digress. Ultimately, my sentiment on that whole thing was if it is just a salary dump for Chicago, all right, fine. Like, I don't love it, but it's fine. Zach LaVine is a really, really fun toy, if nothing else. He is going to win us a game or two, and he's going to hit some really fun shots and maybe give us like 50 at some point. That's fun. For a year, it would have been fun, and then whatever his contract, it would have gotten old pretty quick, right? And because it would have been in like a salary dump move where you literally didn't give up anything at all other than just making sure the contracts match, I would have been able to get on board with it. It would have been way more palatable than if you had to give up, one of the former players or like Isaiah Stewart or somebody like that. But it sounds like it's probably going to be off the table now. Now, I don't think it's entirely inconceivable to think that the Pistons could still do it. I mean, we just saw Houston trade for Steven Adams. Steven Adams very famously has been out for the year since wasn't it like a week before the season even started? And it was like, wow, things are really... For some reason in my head, it was like jaw suspension and then immediately finding out that Steven Adams is going to be out for the year. Maybe it was more spaced out than that, but whatever it was, right? They just gave up Victor Oladipo in 3 second-round picks for a guy that, the Rockets did, for a guy that literally isn't going to be playing this season because they know that obviously they're waiting until next year. So also 3 second-round picks, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Why 3? Why not 2? Why was it 3? I get why maybe it wasn't 1, but why was it 3? And then why wasn't it 4? I don't know how to quantify this shit anymore. So I do think sneaky it could happen, but I don't think it happens. I think if anything, maybe Detroit kind of kicks the can down the road we always talk about how much cap space Detroit is going to have. And then as soon as they have it, they just like hand out fucking contracts to like Monte Morris and Joe Harris. Oh, okay. Okay. So they could just use some of it to absorb a guy like Zach LaVine. So I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for right now, Pistons fans, it looks like we're in the clear. Nobody's gotten fired yet. That's interesting. So I guess I'm not going to be watching for a little while longer. Let's move on. The email to the show will be available in the description of wherever it is that you listen to the show. copingoursubs@gmail.com. Everything spelled out phonetically. Subject line, damned if you do, damned if you don't, from Andre. Hey, Nick. Coming at you from Brazil. You've lightly touched on the subject of women in sports in the last pod with 99.9% of the male audience and the Steph versus Sabrina 3-point contest thing. You've also mentioned that your girlfriend is an athlete and she naturally likes sports. I'm a huge soccer guy, as one has to be born with it in Brazil. Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a big discussion regarding women's soccer. They play in the same pitch with the same size goalposts and for the same amount of time. People who like to shit on women say that they should adapt the sport to better suit women's bodies, given that they're smaller. On the other hand, when Sabrina beat the record for most three-pointers in a three-point contest, people also shit on her because the line is too close and the ball is smaller. Conservatives find a way to shit on women either way. I was wondering, what's your opinion on women's sports? Is there a way that it'll ever take off? The product is entertaining, and in my opinion, it's only a question of perception. Women's volleyball is way more watched than men's, for example. Will there ever be a day where incels accept that women can also play a game and it's not that deep? Cheers. Thank you for the email, Andre. No. Probably not. I don't want to... hey, let's start with a doom and gloom email on Monday. Here's my thing, right? If we want to do, let's peel back the layers on this thing. Okay. If we're talking about soccer, the women's U.S. national team is probably one of, if not the best national team across the board that our country has to offer, right? The world's superpower, as it were. The best national team, the most successful national product that we can put out there is the women's soccer team. I know that they shit the bed in the World Cup, last year? Whatever. Or was it 2 years ago? I'm already forgetting when that was. The last time the World Cup came around, the women's team shit the bed. But more often than not, historically, since the Women's World Cup's inception, they run this shit, okay? And I will give them some credit, and I will give America some credit. That we do kind of rally around them a little bit every 4 years. And I would say the same thing about the men's team, by the way. But with the women's teams, because we never fucking expect them to do anything, because it's always going to go to France, or it's going to go to Spain, or it's going to go to Germany. It's going to go to somebody in Europe, right? It's just never going to be the U.S. in men's. But in women's, we can do that. And we have, again, historically done that. But then what happens immediately after it's done? Nobody cares. I would also argue when it's happening live, do you know what it gets reduced to? It gets reduced to, like, Abby Wambach, like, fucking lib, going out there to, what is she going to do? Like, endorse the vaccine? What is she going to endorse Joe? Like, it always gets reduced to that. Alex Morgan, what is she, like, it just gets reduced to the whole identity politics thing because they're women who are excelling in their sports. Another layer that we can peel back, with all due respect, the W is just always going to be what it is to people, and to most people, that's a fucking meme. And hey, maybe it's not this deep, but if we really want to try to do this thing, the W is 70% black. I would also argue that there's probably not a more hated and historically disrespected demographic in America, outside of Native Americans, than a black woman. Okay, because at least with black men, they can, if the most racist, like most deep South conservative that you can think of, at least on Saturdays, they're watching like Alabama football, or they're watching, right? They can run fast, they can dunk really hard. And in their eyes, there's at least a crumb of value to them, even if that shred is like fucking insanely disrespectful and insanely inhumane to think about. At least there's that, right? But with black women, dude, we're not that far removed from them being used as like a fucking medical experiment. Like, we're not that far removed from, and hey, it even still might be happening in America. I don't know this. But at least, like, how many years ago, like only a generation ago, a black woman would go into labor and they like wouldn't get an epidural because the doctors were like, "Fuck, you don't need it." And they're like, "What?" And they're like, yeah, you just have like a higher, it's like, it's genetic. You guys have like a higher pain tolerance. So the numbers of black women dying in pregnancy were like disproportionately high because doctors just like wouldn't fucking take care of them. So if we can't even love and respect and appreciate our women in everyday normal lives when they're like birthing fucking children, no. When they're playing a game, like probably not. Probably not. And how do you fix that? Well, I don't know. Does Sabrina Ionescu beating Steph in a 3-point shootout help? Nope. Because to your point, what does the conversation then become? Well, they let her shoot with a smaller ball. Well, they let her shoot on a closer line. And to Sabrina's credit, she's been like, please give me the NBA ball. Please let me shoot from the NBA line. I don't know if there's been some communication on that, and maybe they're going to let her do that. I don't know. I have no idea, right? And if that is the case, then good for her. And I hope she fucking crushes him. Either way, I honestly do, because I think that would be, the jokes would be way funnier than the inverse if he beat her. Because like we talked about the other day, if Steph beats Sabrina, it's like, well, this is why women don't belong in men's sports and all this bullshit, whatever. And also that argument is so goddamn funny to me because it's like literally nobody is arguing that Sabrina Ionescu should like play in an NBA game. It's just like, no, dude, there are levels to this, and like you can put them in the same level in some categories, right? Yeah, of course. Physically, the men are gonna fucking obliterate them 99 times out of 100. Like, I don't know, if Asia Wilson was in the NBA, there are a few dudes that she could move around. Like, she could, right? She's a big body. Like, she could if she fucking wanted to. I don't know, you put her on like Ish Smith. I don't know, is Ish gonna like rip her? Yeah, a couple times, but she's a bucket, right? And she can move dudes. So I digress. I don't mean to be a bummer, but yeah, I mean, this is always going to exist. I don't know if you can fix it. Maybe somebody will have a more constructive response in the comments. Or somebody will be like, nice fucking virtue signaling. I'm sorry, America has just historically hated black women. Dude, even when we were in, and this isn't really the same thing, but I don't know, just using women as a, maybe you'll see where I'm going with this. So my girlfriend and I went to Puerto Rico 2 months ago, right? In early December. And I remember we were in a castle. It's built in like the 1500s, like the oldest thing I had ever. You can very seldom find things in America that are that old, right? Maybe if you go to like fucking Plymouth Rock or whatever, but it's very hard to find anything in America that was built in the 1500s. And we're in there, and they're like, yeah, so you know, first the Dutch came down and like tried to kill everybody. It's like, damn. And then like 100 years later, they're like, yeah, and then the British Empire came down and they tried to kill everybody. Damn. And then Puerto Rico was like, and then we established like a few years of sovereignty and peace. And then America came. They treated it like, and then the fucking Fire Nation attacked. And then America came, right? So me and my girlfriend are sitting like, sorry. It wasn't us. Okay? Probably wasn't our ancestors either. Mine were in England. It couldn't have, well, shit, I forgot. I just said that they came first. Okay, well, it wasn't those ancestors. It wasn't those ones. Mine were still, it wasn't mine, okay? But when America came down, they, like, killed all the men, and then they abducted a shit ton of women to just do, like, medical experiments on them. The hell? What? Hating women isn't, like, a new, you know, modern thing, you know? And sure, there are like baby steps every now and then, and you know, we champion women on this podcast, but hey, you guys kind of know what it is. I don't mean it like that. I didn't like how I phrased that, but you know what I mean. Let's move on. We're going to read an email in a second. This is kind of like, it's not breaking news because it's not that important, but from James Edwards III, the Pistons remain interested in Tobias Harris. The Timberwolves are one of the teams that have the most interest in Monte Morris, and Bogdanovich and Burks continue to have strong interest around the league per league sources, but Detroit is still leaning towards keeping both. This is fucking negligence. This is basketball negligence. If they, and I get that the whole Detroit is leaning towards keeping both, could just be a leverage play so that a team will feel pressured into giving up a little bit more so that they can get their hands on them. It is entirely possible that that's what this is. But I'm just looking at the salary sheet right now, right? And you look at Alec Burks, that's an expiring deal, and he's 32 years old. No, 32 years old is not a death sentence, but, like, get him the fuck out of here. Bogdanovich will have one more year on his contract after this year, so I guess if you want to sort of extend the timeline on this one and just wait until he's expiring next year, I mean, I guess that makes sense. It honestly wouldn't offend me that much if we kept him for the rest of the year, get rid of Alec Burks, get rid of Monte Morris, get rid of Joe Harris, get rid of all of these guys. And if they don't, and somebody doesn't get fired, like, please get rid of Arn Tellem. And they won't. Until this entire regime is gone, Arn Tellem will be here. And I would argue that there's a chance that even when this regime is gone, Arn Tellem is still going to fucking be here. And I would still have a hard time rooting for the team if he is, because fuck that guy. So let's get into this email. Very interesting one. Very unique one. And why don't I just read it? Subject line: why do you Americans love the NFL so much? From Samuel. Hey, Nick. Another loyal Australian viewer here. Is it just me, or is America more in love with the NFL's story and entertainment factor as opposed to a love for a sport in general? I say this as I struggle to get behind the NFL as a sport that I enjoy watching. I rather enjoy listening to stories about NFL teams or playoff runs, but when it comes to actually watching it, I really struggle. Mainly because I feel like it differs from every other sport. The main ways: 1, why is every single play drawn up? This feels contrary to every other sport where there are set plays but a degree of change that can happen. Almost no sports have this kind of coaching influence where every single play is drawn up. Other contact sports such as rugby don't share this, and I feel that sports are generally free-flowing, while the NFL just kind of seems to stop and start so the coach can call a new play. Imagine if the NBA was able to call a timeout every single possession. It feels clunky and, in my opinion, takes away the vital aspect of what makes sports great. Please educate me if I'm wrong on this. I'd love to get into the NFL and understand what you guys love so much about it. Thank you for the email here, Samuel. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to shock you, but I get that on a broadcast of an NBA game, just the general noise of a broadcast, you can't hear the coaches all the time. You can't hear the players all the time when they're on the court. Look at their hands. Look at the coach jumping up and down on the sideline. They're calling plays every time they go down the floor. You know what I mean? And no, they're not going to run a set, every single trip down the court. And sometimes it will just kind of be that read and react, like, hey, just go out there and hoop for a little bit. If you're off ball, run around, find the soft spot, that kind of shit, like high ball screen, a little dribble handoff. Like, sometimes, yeah, they're just kind of out there. But also a lot of the time, the dude taking the ball up is calling shit out to get guys into a certain action, right? The coach is over on the side. So, yes, they do this in the NBA way more than I maybe think you realize. In the NFL, why do you have to do this? Why can't the quarterback just snap the ball and receivers just go wherever they want and the quarterback just throws it? Because the average time to pressure a quarterback is what in 2024? Probably somewhere between 3 and 4 seconds. I'd say comfortably it's like 3.5 seconds until there's a hand on the quarterback. You do that because those snap decisions that you have to make are literally fractions of seconds. You do need to know where each guy is going to be so that you can get the ball out, right? When you're running the ball, you cannot just hand it off and the linemen just go out there and block, because you have to create a hole, right? You have to be able to, you got to pull a guard. Maybe you're trying to get him out in space. Like, you need to know where the ball is designed to go so that you can get blockers out in front of him to either break them out in space or, again, to create a hole if you're going inside, right? Nice little 2-hole right up the middle. You need to know between the center and the guard that they need to create some space, right? The game moves at such a fast pace that there just has to be that level of coordination. Whereas in rugby, yeah, I mean, it's literally just a free-for-all. It's literally just a free-for-all, and you just don't have the time to, kind of get your bearings and figure out what's going on, because it's moving at 100 miles an hour, and to your point, there isn't this, like, stop and go. But in the NFL, there has to be some stop and go, because when the guy gets tackled, okay, well, we have to reset, and we have to reline up. Like, it's just the nature of the sport. Why do we love it in America so much? There's got to be. I've been thinking about this damn email since last night, and I just can't figure out how to word this. But, like, we talk at the beginning of the show about the Deep South and, Middle America and stuff. Well, the NFL champions the troops like no one else. The NFL champions the flag like nobody else. How many games every single season do you see an American flag literally as big as a football field and everybody's holding it, around the thing? Like, the NFL, I think, represents America. and in some ways like the military industrial complex, because in every single game we have like a fucking B-2 bomber doing a flyover. We have 5 F-15s doing a flyover. Like, that's not for no reason. And I'm not saying that like Roger Goodell is a CIA agent who is sent here to, you know, indoctrinate us with all of this military propaganda. That's not what I'm saying. That's insane. Although, you know what I do think is weird? Has anybody else been noticing? And I'm not talking about targeted ads that are like based on shit that you're looking up or that you're watching. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like normal commercials that we are not in control of, that just like they purchased the ad space, right? Has anybody else been noticing a lot more commercials for the Army lately? That doesn't make me feel great. I don't love that. I also, the one main newspaper that I read the most is the Telegraph in England, right? For some reason, I feel like I'm just getting less biased news when it comes to America on their behalf. I'm tricking myself because that's not true, but it at least it feels more digestible to me. They've been warmongering a shit ton lately, and I don't love it. I really don't, and it's kind of like turned me off to them a little bit, because every other article is like, hey, you guys are about to fight in a war. I'm just letting you guys know you guys are about to fight in a war. Even if they're fucking right, by the way. I would just like to make my stance clear on this. I would rather go to jail for however long the sentence is than fall on a grenade for my country. You got me fucked up if you think I'm getting drafted. I'm not. Like, my birthday may come up on that list, but my ass is not going over there. I live in r/combat footage, okay? I know what's going on in Ukraine. I know what's going on in Gaza right now. What the IDF is doing flying these fucking drones around. Although sneaky drone warfare has been happening in the Middle East for like longer than it has been anywhere else, so they've kind of gotten the ropes on it. But in Ukraine specifically, like how good these drone operators have gotten is this email was supposed to be about the NFL, and now I'm talking about fucking drone warfare. Hopefully I answered your question, dude, but I'm off on a different thing now. And this is about to get a little bit brutal, but how good these drone operators have gotten in Ukraine, the Russians are fucking terrified of them. And I'm not talking about the drones that are just like hovering above a tank and they just drop a grenade. Yeah, those ones are sick, but the Russians have also kind of figured, even the IDF has figured this out. Why don't I make the point about the Ukrainian drone? Dude, Russians just lay down. As soon as they start to hear that buzz, they like get in a hole and cover themselves with dirt, because and then the fucking Ukrainian drone operators are like, thanks for just already being there, because that's where you're going, buddy. And then they just kamikaze, fly into them. It's brutal. They're in hand-to-hand combat with a fucking drone. If you think I'm getting drafted into that, you are out of your goddamn mind. No, I'll go to jail. I will very, very happily go to jail. Thank you very much. Selective. Please choose your preferred branch of service in the instance that you have to get drafted. Jail. I'd rather go to fucking jail. Let's move on. Subject line, criticizing athletes, from Mateo. Hey, Nick. Hope you're doing well. I went to a Pacers game with my dad. We lost. And afterwards, on the car ride home, he complained about too many players being left open on defense and missing wide open shots. Quote, you get paid millions. You should make wide open shots, unquote, is what he said. For context, he's an old head from the Reggie Miller era. Stopped watching and is now very confused by modern ball. My initial thoughts were, you're not an NBA player and you don't know how hard it is, but I think it brings up a bigger conversation of how much we as fans, or maybe in your case sports media, whatever you prefer to be called, should be critical of players and their teams for their in-game performances. Curious to get your thoughts. Sincerely, Mateo. Sports media? I'm not part of the media. I'm not part of the zeitgeist. I'm literally just a guy talking into a microphone. I never want to be referred to as anything more than that. If anybody's ever like, it's people like you who are, no, I'm not in on that. I'm not in on whatever media you guys think this is. I'm literally just a guy. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars, so they shouldn't be missing wide open shots, is very ninja coded. It is very, why do kickers literally ever miss? It's like the one thing that you have to do. I love that this notion that as the second that you are drafted or signed and you're playing on a professional level, human error is just taken out of it. It is completely taken out of the equation. And because you are in a position that statistically most people aren't ever going to get even close to, now all of a sudden perfection is the standard. And I'm not saying that, yes, of course, we're holding these guys to a higher standard. But again, we are all of a sudden eliminating the human error piece of it. It's just a loser argument. And I'm sorry to call your dad a loser. Your dad's probably an awesome guy. But it's a loser take. I just don't think it's just not fair at all. Do we need to be criticizing these athletes more? No, we do not need to be criticizing them more, because in the era of social media, like, these dudes are getting their inboxes flooded. Yes. Close your DMs if that's a problem. Or like the old Tyler the Creator meme, like, how is cyberbullying even real? Close your eyes. Like, yeah, I definitely get it. There are so many avenues that these players can take to avoid having people just talk erroneous. I don't even think that's a real word, or I don't know why that word even just came out of my mouth. People talking insane amounts of shit to them on the internet. There are a lot of ways that they can sort of turn themselves off to that. They could just not be on social media. For starters, right? So, yeah, there's an issue with that. But nobody's ever going to have an issue with, giving somebody empirical evidence to suggest that, like, hey, this guy is not a good mid-range shooter, but he takes a lot of middies. But, like, he still does it. Or, like, a couple years ago, my whole spiel on Drew Eubanks used to be, like, that guy used to get the ball in the low post with 14 seconds on the clock and be like, I don't have shit else going on. And he would just put it up inexplicably all the time. That's what he would do. And it drove me insane. That's a real thing that he would do. I think that's like legitimate criticism, right? When Killian got into the league, I don't remember which hand it was that because I know he's a lefty. I don't remember if it was he can't go right, I think is what it was. And I remember what was funny is it was like the first preseason game that he played, the first bucket that he scored, he went right on a dude and picked up an and one, and actually, like, it went down. It was sick, and it was very funny to see him go right. But even Jaylen Brown, people still say that dude can't dribble with his left hand. Hey, man, I'm sure somebody's probably thrown together a 13-minute compilation of him going left but still dribbling with his right hand. I'm sure that exists somewhere out there. So there's always a way that you can do it as long as there's some nuance to it. But I've never agreed with the notion that because these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, the second that they walk onto that court, the second they walk onto that field, the second they start skating around on that rink, anything that they do that is outside the realm of perfection is like an inherent failure. These dudes, at the end of the day, are just like you. Physically, they're not, but mentally and shit, like, most of them are literally just some guy. I would also argue the NBA has a bigger margin of guys who are just kind of there. Not check collectors, but, in some of these other sports, in order to get to that level, there's a level of dedication that you have to put into it that once you finally cross that threshold, you have to care. It's literally been your entire life getting to that moment. And that's not to say that there are, dudes in the NBA haven't been working hard. But when you get this 19-year-old in the league and you give him, $8 million, it's a lot easier to think that guy's heart isn't going to be in it, because really all he's known is what? Like, he was on the AAU circuit for a while, like dusting kids. And then he probably went to Kansas for a year, went to Kentucky for a year, fucked around a little bit, didn't go to classes, was just there to hoop, and then goes to the league. And now all of a sudden he's shown all this money. The NBA is probably the number one social media sport in America in terms of what clips you are. Although the NFL has gotten really good at that in the last few years about like social media. The baseball just fucking still hasn't figured it out. The MLB still has not figured out like social media, and they also don't allow people to use their clips at all, where the NBA is like pretty cool about it. I mean, the NFL hasn't gotten there yet, but the NBA is pretty chill about it. Editing videos for Jacob, aka Rusty Buckets, it's like, I remember when I started, he's like, yeah, you can just like throw in some footage here and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? I was like, we can do that? He was like, yeah. I was like, the NBA doesn't strike you? He's like, no. And what I've learned, I have never been explicitly told this. This is just kind of how I've always looked at it. And Jacob has never corrected me on this. Rudy has also never corrected me on this. So I've just always assumed that I'm doing it the right way, but maybe I'm doing it this way for no reason at all. I've learned that if you just zoom in a little bit and crop out, Bally Sports in the top corner, or TSN, or whoever the broadcaster is, ESPN, and the scoreboard, so it's literally just the action, there's a little bit more leniency, because sometimes it's on behalf of those broadcasting partners or those syndicates that they are the ones who will deliver the strikes. But for some reason, if it's just the footage, it just doesn't clock. Again, I don't know how that works, but I say all that just to say, for a league, that is as social media driven as the NBA is, it doesn't surprise me some of the rhetoric that we hear about some of these players on a daily basis. And again, I'd say the NFL is kind of one and the same. They've definitely caught up in that regard in the social media era, right? Even if football was always number one in most Americans' hearts, the NBA was the one that I think captured the because it's also just kind of historically been the most like gossipy league. And are men too afraid to admit that, hey, every now and then we love a little bit of gossip? I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that. I just watched the Grammys for 3.5 hours just to watch a bunch of celebrities to see like, ooh, did this person just give a dirty look when this person won? Like, that's just what I fucking live for. I love it. I don't think we need to be harder on them, though. But I don't think we need to be softer on them either. I think if we've reached we haven't reached a very healthy medium because people are still awful to these guys. Let's move on. I said I wasn't going to do one of these emails today, and then he kind of sent a follow-up he sent a follow-up this morning, and it bumped the original email to the top of the inbox, like live while I was on the fly figuring out what I wanted to read. And I think that this could be a good coaching moment for this guy. So if you'll all indulge, me and Liam here, we're going to talk him through something. Subject line, the Coping Hour has become a life advice show? Hey, Noah. It may not be Friday, but I'm in need of some of that Noah the Love Coach magic right now. February has a certain day on the 14th that I'm either looking forward to or it'll be terrible. Basically, I've been dating this girl since January 1st, so not very long, right? But it's still kind of something, you know. Because it's been such a short time, do you think I should do anything for Valentine's Day for her? I'm debating taking her to this local steakhouse, but I also don't want to reach too much because it's only been basically a month. Help a brother out. From Liam. And I'm not reading the basketball take that you included here because it's fucking delusion. I will, just so everybody can roll their eyes. Also, because it's a basketball pod, Scotty Barnes greater than signed prime LeBron from a delusional Raptors fan. I hope you feel better that I've read that on the show, Liam. Everybody's rolling their eyes and you're laughing. All right, so as it pertains to the email here, I am going to assume you're on the younger side because nobody over the age of 20 would have included this many emojis in an email. They just wouldn't have. There's only like 3, but that's a lot for an email. It's funny to me that that's like the only medium that emojis like aren't accepted in is via email. If there's like more than one, I'm like, all right, Jesus, like what are you doing? I turned so fucking corporate the second that I'm reading an email versus reading a text. It's literally the same thing. Just it's through a different channel. It's literally all that it is, right? So you're fine here. Fire the emojis away. But I say that because if you are on the younger side, if you're over 20 still using emojis in your fucking emails, you're out of your mind. So please stop doing that. But if you're on the younger side here, Valentine's Day probably still has a little bit to it, right? There's still a little bit of like pressure that comes with it. I'm at an age now, I don't give a shit about it. And you're going to be like, oh, I bet your girlfriend is so happy about that. We've never cared about Valentine's Day. It's never been a day that we've gotten up for, like, and she's okay with this, by the way. You guys don't need to fucking check me on my relationship. It's just not a day that we get up for, right? We don't need a single day to express our love to each other the way that some people apparently do. That's not very nice of me to say. But what I would say to you is this. How long do you think you need to be dating a woman in order to do something nice for her? Are you telling me today's February 5th, as of this recording, you've been dating her since around January 1st. Have you not done anything nice for her yet because you guys haven't been dating for long enough? When do you meet that threshold is what my question would be. You're going to say, oh, well, no, I've done this nice thing. I've done this nice thing. Well, then what's one more nice thing just because it's Valentine's Day? Right, man? You know what I mean? Like I don't give a damn if you've been dating her since February 1st. If you guys are an item and Valentine's Day matters to you and you think it might matter to her, which it sounds like it might, maybe she's like, I don't know, again, if you guys are on the younger side, maybe she's always wanted to go on a Valentine's date. Maybe she's always wanted somebody to ask her to go on something and she'll get all dolled up for it, right? She'll get all dressed up for it and she'll be really excited because it was like, oh, this guy is so sweet. He wants to take me somewhere for dinner, even if she's been on one before. But that's exciting for anybody. That's exciting. So I guess I'm just confused because it's really just a day. It's all that it is. It's going to be a Wednesday this year. So if you're worried about her saying no, if you're worried that you're going to come on too strong here, don't phrase it like, can I take you out for Valentine's Day? Unlike next Monday, next Tuesday. Be like, hey, on Wednesday, do you want to go get dinner? Just say it like that. Just say it like that. And if she pieces together that it's Valentine's Day, you know, maybe it'll, whatever. What if she says no? Well, if she says no to getting dinner with you on Valentine's Day, there's a chance you actually might have an answer to a question that you weren't even asking. You know what I mean? And I don't want to turn this into a whole different thing about what, you know, if she says no, what could that, I mean, there's a chance that she's actually busy, right? And she just can't, maybe she's doing something with her family, like whatever. Maybe she is actually just busy, but kind of read the tea leaves on that one. But the odds are she's going to say yes. The odds are, if you guys are sort of exclusive, even if you're not classifying it as real dating yet, but if you guys are really trying to see how this thing works, you know, about a month, and by the time Valentine's Day rolls around, a month and a half into this thing, I don't really see why she would say no to you, man. Everybody loves a good steak, especially if she's not paying, right? Please pay for this whole thing. If you're asking her to dinner, don't make her go halves on this. You got it, dude. Local steakhouse, you got it. What's that going to be? After the tip, $60? Maybe. Yeah, probably somewhere around there for two people. I'd say you each get a steak. It probably after tip, $60, something like that. Maybe a generous tipper like $70, whatever it is, right? If it's cheaper than that, I would question how good the steak is. Well, that's not true. I've had some pretty good steaks for like $10. Well, not $10. What am I even talking about? Give this dude some advice, Nick. I kind of have. Like, I'm just going to reiterate the sentiment at the beginning of, you don't need to be dating this woman for X amount of time for you to then start doing nice things for her, right? She's a person just like you are, man. Because put yourself in her shoes, and you're kind of like, I wonder if he's gonna ask me to do anything for Valentine's Day. Maybe she's saying that. Maybe she's in the back of her head like, I hope he asks to do something. Or maybe she doesn't care about the day at all. Maybe she's like me and my girlfriend, and it's just kind of like a day, and it just is what it is. But please, don't overthink this, because I think you are. This notion that like you're gonna come on too strong. For some reason, I feel like a lot of men will run into this issue, and then it turns out that they're portraying themselves as very emotionally unavailable, and they won't just say what they want. They won't just fucking say what they're feeling. In this instance, dude, you want to do this. Put yourself out there. Like, be vulnerable. It's okay to do that. It's okay to, even if you get shot down, dude, like, you were direct about what you wanted. That's what matters here. Because the inverse is, you're like, in a month, right? If you guys are still together, and you're like, yeah, I was going to ask you out on Valentine's Day, but like, I just wasn't sure if you could, like, how does that conversation go? What do you even want her to say to that? Like, oh, I would have loved for you to do that. Or like, oh, thank God you didn't do that. She's not going to say that. She's just not going to say that. It's the right thing to do. Take this woman out and have a great time. And let's move on. We're going to wrap up here in a minute. Some of these emails that you guys send in are just they're just a little bit over my head. And I kind of want to read one of them right now. Because I'm like, what? What poli-science bullshit are you majoring in, dude? He leads the email by being like, I'm wrapping up my master's thesis, and if everything goes as expected, I can forward it to you after graduating for obviously comedic reasons. Right, obviously for comedic reasons, not as like a fucking flex, dude. Like, oh, hey, just as a goof, I don't know if this would be good content if you want to read this on the show. Please send it to me. I sound like I'm shitting on you. I'm not trying to. But he sends in two questions here as kind of like a choose your own adventure game. And the first question I actually really like, and I was going to read it today, but I might push it until Friday. The second question just blew my mind. Because here it is. Do you believe that the continuous expansion of unregulated capitalism will continue to deteriorate the concept of democracy and push for the reinstitutionalization of imperialism through the means of cultural adaptation with the intent of culturally exploiting the regular individual? Oh, that's not what we do around here, buddy. There are too many syllables in this question. There are a lot of words that I only half know what they mean. And even if it's beautifully written, if it's perfectly nuanced, if it's such an elegant question, I'm reading it so somebody can tackle it in the comments if they'd really, really like to. But I cannot do it. My answer to you would be yes. Good take. I like it. And let's move on. No, but what's interesting to me is that, you know, we did the whole voting plan thing in the last episode on Friday, and people definitely let me know their thoughts on that, even the people who were not happy about it. Some of you did point something out that for some reason I just didn't really think about this. They're like, dude, you live in Chicago. It's going to go blue no matter what. I was like, that's true. So they're like, you can basically vote for whoever you want. Yeah, that's true. You guys are probably right about that. Because try as I like Illinois will vote for Joe. I mean, barring something shocking. Well, no, because Chicago just pulls the state. So yes, Illinois will go blue like it always does. Here's my question. At what point do you just kind of give up on the communism thing? Because, I mean, I'm out of that. I've been out of that. Some of you are going to hear what I just said, and you'll be like, when do you fall out of it? When the hell do you fall into it? Yeah. But don't be naive to this. Because and it's not new, by the way. It's been around since the 30s in America. But it cannot shock you that, you know, the further and deeper that we fall into late-stage capitalism, the more millennials and the more Gen Z kids and beyond that kind of stumble into this new political ideology, you know, seizing the means of production. Hey, these workers don't get paid enough. That's like basically everything Karl Marx said in the manifesto. And so what's also funny to me is when like some kid will whip out like a 500-page version of the manifesto, and I'm like, isn't it like 20 pages? Like straight, like the version I have over there sitting on the thing is like straight up like 50 pages. So I don't know what the hell else is going on in your little book. Is he just like referencing sources? Is that what somebody tried to do, or just like comparing it to like modern day shit and how a lot of the stuff that Karl Marx said, like, whoa, was he kind of cooking a little bit with some of the stuff that he said? Like, yeah, he was, but barring some insane political revolution in America, dude, it's literally never going to happen. You guys need to drop it. But what's also funny, if we're just talking about things that are funny to me, I guess, whenever there's a revolution somewhere else in the world, a politically charged revolution, and America is like, we need to step in, whether it's, you know, just with assisting with aid, or we literally are boots on the ground getting involved in the war. It's always like people forget how the country was even founded in the first place. The United States, I mean. Nikki Haley being on SNL? How about that? That's cringe. That's weird. I don't like that at all. And that's not the left-wing me being, that's just weird. I would have said the same thing if it was Joe. Like, stop putting these fucking politicians on SNL, please. Please. Also, don't do the Trump thing again. Just don't put politicians on SNL, please. I would say the same thing if it was goddamn AOC, okay? Well, you know who I wouldn't, but this is why I'm not being fair. If it was Bernie, I'd be like, oh my God, he's so cute. He's so sweet. I love that man. So I'm not being fair here. I wish I could not be fair about Nikki Haley and say, you didn't even have the guts to run with your government name, because conservatives would have been so goddamn scared of you. But she's been going by Nikki like her entire life. So technically it's not, she's not like whitewashing her name like people have accused her of. It's a wonder that Vivek Ramaswamy made it as far as he did. It's insane to me that some dude sitting in like rural Arkansas didn't just see a brown guy with a name that had as many vowels as his does. Just go, oh my God, like it's the fucking Antichrist. Like, it's a wonder that he was able to stand up on that podium for as long as he was, and that people were actually backing him, honestly, as far as the conservative party is concerned. But also, fuck that guy. Rest in peace. He won't be missed. Literally, who cares? Nikki Haley is Trump's running mate. There's no way, right? There's no way. I think but he's already just, if Ron DeSantis ever said anything that was actually true, it was, you could be the most low-level, despicable conservative in the world, but as soon as you kiss the ring, Donald Trump will say the nicest shit in the world about you, and he will act like he never said anything bad about you. That's actually true. So I say that Nikki Haley won't be Trump's VP because he's like been pretty nasty to her, but the second that she realizes that she doesn't have the juice, right, to win the election, she'll be like, all right, well, Donald Trump is sick. And he'll be like, you're kind of sick too. Like, do you want to get on board here? Like, it's probably what's going to happen. How about liberal Reddit having a damn, like, DEFCON 5 or DEFCON 1, which is the worst, level meltdown over Shane Gillis hosting in a few weeks? Look, I mean, hey, it's not my place to tell people to stop being mad about shit. I don't even like him. I don't even like Shane Gillis that much. As a guy, I think he's funny. As a comedian, I don't. Like, his stand-up just isn't for me. But as a dude, like, I think he's funny. First of all, well, let me finish what I was going to say. It's not my responsibility. It's not my place to be like, you shouldn't be mad about all, like, the anti-Asian jokes that are not even anti, it's just Asian jokes that he made a couple years ago that ended up getting him fired from SNL. I'm a white guy. Like, I understand. It's not on me to be like, you're not even that mad about this anymore. Hey, if you're mad about it, you're fucking mad about it. Like, it is what it is. But the way that people act like he is like a conservative champion, like a conservative Trump poster boy, I'm like 99% sure that dude voted for Biden. And doesn't he start every Trump joke with like, this dude was not a good president, but he was really, really funny. And if nothing else, that's a sentiment that a lot of people have. Yeah, he says a lot of really hateful and bigoted shit, a lot of scary and dangerous shit too. But when he's not president and he's in front of a crowd 2 weeks ago talking about how liberals are trying to debank, what the hell does that even mean? I think Weekend Update did a segment about this. He was like, they're trying to debank you. We're never going to debank you. And then he went on to say, I'll debank. What? He has no idea what he's talking about anymore. He'll go up there and he'll just be like, beep, boop, boop. Like, literally, he'll just, like, make fucking sounds and noises. Like, he's a soundboard of just, like, bullshit. So when he's not in power and the shit that he says, it's not that it doesn't have consequence, because it very much has real-life consequences to people who are marginalized. But it's easier to be like, God damn, this guy is funny. But he cannot be president again. SNL, here's the thing. People have, I was kind of the last one on the train, off the train, rather, on the whole SNL is funny thing, because sometimes they do just take it. They're just so annoying. But if nothing else, Weekend Update, I think, is like one of the best segments on TV. Between Colin Jost and Michael Che, I think the contrast that those two have, the way that they play off of each other, the way that they fuck with each other, and I don't even mean like the joke swapping specifically. I mean just in any given episode, it's probably the most consistent laugh that you'll have, at least for me, and at least for us in this household, where the worst Weekend Update will still give you a little nasal exhale laugh. You know what I mean? Like one of those. That's the worst case scenario. But more often than not, like, you'll get a legit laugh because they're just so damn funny. And it's a shame that they only get to go for, like, you know, when they're doing the actual topics and not like the little in-between bits that they do. Like a cumulatively 6 minutes is all that they get. So I think that kind of sucks. It also sucks that they're definitely nearing the end of the line. I mean, they've been doing Weekend Update for like 8 years at this point, maybe 9 years at this point. So they're definitely getting there, and that sucks. But, this has been a weird one. I think I fell down some rabbit holes today that I may regret, but I'm going to stand by it because that's what we do on the Coping Hour. I just talk into a microphone, and rather I wake up, go, I wonder what I'm going to say today. And then by the end of it, I'm like, Or I'm like, that was a good show. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can leave 5 stars. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can leave a like, subscribe, leave a nice little comment for the algorithm. And I will catch you guys
Computers now have
in the
primary
next
control.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful.